took his illegal FLIR camera and went and FLIR'd a grow room for me, and I paid him $1,000 for that, and that footage is in my Never Get Busted. And I burnt him for this reason. As he was paying me for the footage to teach people how to get by police without going into a cage, he was announcing to the media, you can look it up on the internet, the AP articles, his name's Richard Dixon. He was telling the press, well, Barry was one of the top narcotics officers, but he's just making these films now for the money. The whole time he had $2,300 in his pocket helping me make that film.
Well, they always say that.
That's the hypocrisy of our men in blue right now. And listen, it's not, oh, well, there's a few bad apples and the rest are good. That might have been back in the 50s or 40s. I don't know. I didn't live back then, but that's not today. The majority of them are corrupt, and I'll go as far to say all of them are corrupt because they're working with a corrupt penal code that's against the Constitution. A test of a society's freedoms is how many are in jail and how many are not, and we have failed that test.
We have more than any other nation in the world.
In the whole world.
I want to explain. China has 400 million people, and they have less than us. Now, I want to go back to something you were saying because it's so important. Just as, just expanding on that, Rosa Parks, arresting her, saying it's the law. The police know, and I've talked to a lot of them, they know that most of the narcotics are brought in by the federal government. Again, I mean, this is a joke. And I don't like pulling up to a checkpoint and having cops ask me if I've got drugs because I don't use them, other than this coffee right here, and it's probably just about as bad. So by that I mean illegal things. I don't use prescription, illegal, though I did take one of those anti-allergy over-the-counter things, Claritin this morning because the cedar fever around here. But anyways, I mean, it's just, I can't believe they sit around making excuses. So because you were a top narcotics officer and you were in this culture, let me understand this. So when they get up on the news and say we're trying to help the children, we're trying to fight drugs, they consciously know it's just a big business and they're just mercenary pirates?
I'm not sure. It depends on what level they're at. The guys in top government know that. The lower guys in the task force, like I was, somehow I really believed I was saving a kid from getting this marijuana on a playground somewhere because I had been told that. But through several years of investigation, I'm like, I've never caught one person on a playground trying to sell our kids drugs. And to come to think about it, I don't know of any kids that have died of an overdose in my community. It's just not true.
Well, I'll tell you another story. When I was in 6th grade, and again, I knew people dealing drugs, but to housewives and people, older kids, big brothers. And I told you the story about once I was in high school, they called me in and said, we know you're stealing stereos. I said, I don't steal anything. I'm not known for that. What are you talking about? And they said, look, you're going to inform for us. And I said, I'm not involved with anything. I'm not. And they got real mad. When I was in 6th grade, they were doing this to a lot of kids. It wasn't just me that this is being singled out. They would have another kid come over and say, I want you to sell me marijuana. I know you've got marijuana. And for week after week after week after week, ask me. And I was just now learning that there were 6th and 7th graders who had big brothers, whatever, who could get marijuana. And I'll never forget, finally, after months of this kid asking me, I said, well, Bobby over here, I don't remember the kid's name, I think he can do it. Just talk to him. And then a month later, I heard there's a big drug bust and, the news and the parents are all concerned. And the little kid brought a roach to sell the other kid who was their little informant because they kept begging. There was no drugs in there. Yeah. There was no, but they wanted to say our intermediate 6th, 7th grade or middle school, it was 6th, 7th, 8th grade in the same complex. There's drugs everywhere. There weren't. Yeah. I mean, but it turned out this kid was going around to everybody. I mean, I'm in the football field house. He's going, I hear you got marijuana. I hear you deal it. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't. I mean, I wasn't even smoking pot at that time. But anyways, it's just...
That's our parents' fault and our grandparents' fault. They should have been up at the school saying, whoa, you're adults. You're not going to act like this over a roach. He shouldn't have brought it to school. And what cops got him to do this anyway? And then all the parents go to the police station and say, you're not going to treat our kids like that?
They bust the one little kid for the roach or whatever. They call me into the office and they say, admit you were involved in the drug deal. And I said, you guys know that you had that other kid come over and do this. And I guess there were so many people. I didn't know I was smart when I was in 6th grade, but I'll never forget. Anyways, I'm taking up all the time.
No,
that they then sent me back to class, and then the next day called my dad and said, "We need you to come here." And they were like asking my dad in the meeting, how does he know to say no to all this? What's he involved in? What are you involved in? And but it wasn't just me. The whole school was about harassing and trying to get. And now kids get in a fist fight, they get arrested instead of just being broken up and
bring a coach in and let the boys box it out a little bit.
But I mean exactly. The schools are these zero tolerance. Did you see the L.A. Times where the woman? Her two children were fighting with each other in the aisle before takeoff. They knocked over her Bloody Mary,
yes.
and she slapped one on the leg. Mm-hmm. And then they came over and said, for spilling that and that slap, terrorism. And she's now been convicted under the USA Patriot Act and is going to serve 10 years in prison. Did you see that?
God, that's sad.
Look, right there, charged as a terrorist. L.A. Times.
Okay, that's crazy. And that brings up a point. There's a principle that I have debates with. There's a lot of these teachers. When I mentioned it's not the kids' fault, it's the parents. They're teachers for some reason. Not all of the teachers. Both of my parents are teachers. My dad, a math teacher, has been teaching for 20 years. My mother's a computer teacher, has been teaching for 15 years. They're both in public schools teaching, so I know what y'all are up against. But unfortunately, a lot of the teachers have developed this attitude. These kids are crazy. What's wrong with these kids? It's not the teachers against the kids. The teachers are there to provide a learning and safe environment for those kids.
Well, I mean, I remember having teachers that I didn't respect because they were mean, and then there was always the cool teacher everybody loved, and nobody misbehaved because they were a real teacher, and they commanded that audience.
Right. So this kicking kids out of school because they can't make a C. I mean, kicking them out of football because they can't make a C. I don't believe that. Most of those kids have a rotten home life. They go to school like Candy had a rotten home life. She went to school because that's where she could find love. So you take an athlete that maybe he can't tell you the difference between a gerund and a participle, and he can't factor in polynomials on each side, but he is a hell of a mechanic and can play football. So let's get him in a class and teach him those mechanic skills, and don't kick him out of football where there are coaches that can love and help this man and keep him off drugs. There's a reason we're losing 50% of our kids in high school.
And the social engineers, here's the sick thing, and I know you're very well informed, but we have a book this thick, the size of an Austin phone book, not as big as the Dallas. She was the head of policy, Department of Education. Dad, skull and bones, elite blue blood. And they called her in and they said, we're here to destroy the family. We're here to dumb them down. We're here to make school horrible. We're here to get them in the criminal justice system because we're institutionalizing America to control them. We've got to, I'm serious.
It worked.
We have all that. Can you think how cold-blooded that is? That for 60 years they've been doing that to make kids want to drop out, to make them not be able to learn. Of course, the teachers don't know. They're compartmentalized, having to deal with what they've been given.
Well, not only that, that system attracts the type of teacher that can work in that. Just like the police system attracts the type of human being that can work under those circumstances. We have teachers in this land that are not in our public schools. I mean, good, qualified, heartfelt.
Well, they get run out. They get run out.
They get ran out of our education
system.
My
grandmother was like an award-winning top, teacher. She had a master's degree in teaching, and she got out of teaching early because she just said the school system won't let me teach.
You're exactly right. We have those problems. So again, it's neat how Americans, this is not just, Candy and I are not just about legalizing pot. It's a freedom issue. We're big on families. We're big on, we have the same problems every normal American family has, and we have the same joys and the same fears and the same emotions that the listeners feel right now in their own homes. And this is a new America coming through. Alex, we have activists such as yourself, Kevin Booth, Mark Emery in Canada, what we're doing, and I really believe the network is being connected, and we are going to see some changes in America shortly. It's going to go one way or the other, and I'm believing it's going to go our way.
Have you ever met Mark Stevnoski, the former Dallas Cowboys center?
I have not.
He's a 9/11 truther and an anti drug war advocate for decriminalization. He's a good guy. You should get him on the show. In closing, let's talk about just what it's been like for you to go from being